The rain had a way of making everything feel heavier that night, like the sky itself was pressing down on my chest, forcing every hidden truth to the surface. The city outside my apartment window blurred into streaks of neon and shadow, headlights dragging across the wet streets like broken promises that refused to fade. I stood there barefoot on the cold marble floor, my fingers wrapped tightly around my phone, rereading the message that had just shattered 5 years of my life. You deserve to know. He's been seeing someone else. For months. No name. No explanation. Just a truth so sharp it didn't feel real at first. My reflection in the glass looked like a stranger. Wide eyes, pale lips, and a stillness that didn't belong to heartbreak. Because the truth was, I didn't cry. Not yet. A memory flickered in my mind, soft and dangerous. The first time I met Daniel, it had been in a crowded cafe that smelled like roasted coffee beans and cinnamon. He'd smiled at me like he already knew me, like I was something he'd been waiting for. Back then, I believed in that kind of thing. Fate, timing, love that arrives like a miracle. I believed in him. That girl, she would have cried. But I wasn't her anymore. My phone buzzed again, pulling me back to the present. This time it was him. Daniel. I stared at his name lighting up my screen, my thumb hovering over the answer button as my heart pounded, not with pain, but with something colder, sharper, control. I picked up. Hey! His voice came through, warm and familiar, as if nothing had changed. I'm running late tonight. Work's crazy. Don't wait up. The lie slipped so easily off his tongue, it almost impressed me. For a second, silence stretched between us. I could hear faint laughter in the background on his end, a woman's laughter. There it was. Proof. Something inside me shifted, not breaking, but hardening. Okay, I said softly. Just one word. Calm, controlled, unbothered. He paused, like he expected more. Maybe tears. Maybe suspicion. Maybe a crack in the version of me he thought he owned. But I gave him nothing. Love you, he added quickly. A habit, not a truth. I let the silence hang just long enough to make it uncomfortable. I replied and hung up. The moment the call ended, the quiet in my apartment felt different. Not empty, charged. I walked slowly toward the couch, every step deliberate, my mind already racing ahead. If this had been a week ago, I would have confronted him immediately. I would have demanded answers, cried, begged for honesty. But something about that anonymous message, it felt intentional. Like someone wanted me to see everything before reacting. And suddenly I understood why. Because reacting too soon would mean losing. And I wasn't going to lose. Not this time. I opened my laptop, the screen casting a cold glow across the room as the storm outside grew louder. Rain tapped violently against the windows, like a warning, or maybe a countdown. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for only a moment before I started searching. Daniel Carter, the man I thought I knew, the man who had built a life with me. Shared rent, shared dreams, shared a future that now felt like a carefully staged illusion. At first, everything looked normal. His social media was clean, curated. Pictures of us. Trips. Smiles. Lies. But then I dug deeper. Work events. Tagged photos. Comments from people I didn't recognize. And then, her. She wasn't tagged in anything obvious. But she appeared too often in the background. Always just slightly out of frame. Like someone hiding in plain sight. Dark hair. Confident posture. The kind of woman who didn't look like she needed anyone, which made it even more dangerous. My chest tightened, but still no tears. Instead, I felt something else growing. Focus. I clicked on a photo from 3 months ago. A corporate dinner. Daniel stood near the center, his arm casually resting behind her chair. Not touching, but close enough. Too close. My mind started connecting pieces, the late nights, the sudden business trips, the way he'd begun guard his phone like it held state secrets. It was all there. I just hadn't wanted to see it. Stupid, I whispered to myself, but there was no self-pity in it, only realization. And then my phone buzzed again. Another message. Same unknown number. If you want the truth, don't confront him yet. Watch. I stared at the words, my pulse quickening. Whoever this was, They knew more, and they weren't done. For the first time that night, a small smile touched my lips, not from happiness, but from something far more dangerous, opportunity. Because if someone else was willing to expose him, then I wouldn't just catch him. I would destroy the version of himself he thought was untouchable. The next morning, the city looked deceptively peaceful. Sunlight reflected off wet streets, the air fresh after the storm, as if the world had reset overnight. But inside me, something had awakened. Daniel kissed my forehead before leaving for work, just like he always did. His touch lingered a second too long, like he was reassuring himself more than me. "Big meeting today," he said, adjusting his watch. "Might be late again." "Of course." I smiled. "Good luck." He hesitated, studying my face carefully, like he was searching for cracks. But I had already rebuilt myself. Stronger, colder, untouchable. The moment the door closed behind him, I moved. I grabbed my keys, my bag, and my phone, heart steady, mind sharp. If he thought I'd sit at home and cry, he had no idea who he was dealing with. Because I wasn't the girl who believed in love anymore. I was the woman who was about to rewrite the ending. And this time, he would be the one begging. The moment the door clicked shut behind Daniel, the silence in the apartment no longer felt suffocating. It felt strategic, like the calm before something inevitable. I didn't waste a single second. My movements were precise, controlled, almost mechanical, but beneath that calm exterior, my mind was sharper than it had ever been. Last night had taken something from me, yes, but it had also given me something far more powerful, clarity. And clarity didn't cry, it planned. I stepped into the bedroom, pulling open the drawer where Daniel carelessly kept things he thought I'd never question. Receipts, old notes, random clutter. He had always been disorganized in the smallest ways, ironically blind to how those same habits could expose him. It didn't take long. Within minutes, I found it, a hotel receipt. Not hidden, just buried under enough mess to seem irrelevant. 2 nights, same dates as his so-called conference. My fingers brushed over the paper, and for a brief second, something inside me twisted. But again, no tears came, just confirmation. "Good," I murmured under my breath. "Keep underestimating me." I grabbed my phone and dialed the unknown number from last night. It rang twice before the call connected, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It was loaded. "You're smarter than I thought," a woman's voice finally said, calm and unreadable. I leaned slightly against the dresser, my eyes narrowing. "And you're exactly who I thought you'd be." A pause, then a soft chuckle. "Then you already know this isn't just about cheating." I did. I could feel it. "Tell me everything," I said, my tone steady, leaving no room for hesitation. And she did. Her name was not important. Not yet. What mattered was what she revealed. This wasn't new. It hadn't just happened. It had been going on for nearly 6 months. The late nights, the deals, the sudden promotions Daniel had been chasing. Lena wasn't just a woman in his life. She was a ladder, and Daniel had been climbing. Every word she spoke peeled back another layer of the illusion I had been living in. "He talks about you," she added at one point, almost casually. My grip on the phone tightened slightly. "Oh, yeah," she continued. "Says you're safe, predictable, that you were there when he needed stability. But now," a slight pause, "now he wants more." Something cold slid through my chest, but instead of breaking me, it anchored me deeper. "Good," I said quietly. "Then let him have more." She went silent, "Because I'm about to take everything else." That caught her attention. "Careful," she warned. "You're not the only one who knows how to play this game." A faint smile curved my lips. "I don't play games," I replied softly. "I end them." And with that, I hung up. For a moment, I stood there, letting everything settle. The truth, the betrayal, the sheer arrogance of a man who thought he could rewrite our story without consequences. But what he didn't understand was simple. He hadn't just betrayed me. He had taught me exactly where to hit him. By noon, I was sitting in a quiet cafe across from Daniel's office building, my sunglasses hiding the sharp focus in my eyes. The place smelled of espresso and freshly baked bread. Soft jazz playing in the background, normal, peaceful, almost mocking the storm building inside me. From my seat near the window, I had a perfect view of the entrance. And I waited. Time passed slowly, but I didn't mind. Patience was no longer a weakness. It was my advantage. Every second that ticked by wasn't wasted, it was calculated. And then, at exactly 1:17 p.m., there he was. Daniel stepped out of the building, adjusting his suit, scanning the street briefly before his expression shifted. She was already there. Lena, standing by the curb. Effortless as always, her presence commanding without trying. She smiled when she saw him, a smile I now recognized too well. Not innocent, not accidental, intentional. They didn't kiss. Not immediately. But the way he looked at her, the way his body leaned toward hers, it said everything. I watched as they walked side by side, close enough to erase any doubt. His hand brushed against hers once, twice, and then finally, he stopped pretending. His fingers intertwined with hers like it was the most natural thing in the world, like I had never existed. For the first time, something inside me cracked slightly, but I forced it back down, locking away before it could grow. Not now, not here, because this moment, this was power. I pulled out my phone and took a picture, not out of pain, out of purpose. Perfect, I whispered, because now I had proof, and proof was dangerous. The rest of the afternoon blurred into quiet preparation. Calls, messages, small, subtle moves that didn't seem like much on the surface, but each one was a thread, slowly weaving something far bigger. By the time evening came, I wasn't the same woman who had stood frozen in the rain the night before. I had direction. And Daniel? He had no idea. That night, he came home late again. Same excuse, same tone, same lie. But this time, I saw everything differently. Every word, every glance, every carefully constructed detail. I stood in the kitchen when he walked in, the soft glow of the lights casting shadows across the room. "You're still awake?" he asked, surprised. I turned to face him, a small, calm smile on my lips. "Just waiting," I said. "For me?" he asked, loosening his tie. "Yes," I replied, my voice smooth, unreadable. He walked closer, leaning in slightly like he used to, like habit hadn't caught up with truth yet. "You don't have to do that," he said. "You should rest." I held his gaze, unflinching. "I will," I said quietly. "Soon." There was something in my tone that made him pause, a flicker of uncertainty. Good. Let him feel it, because for the first time, the balance was shifting. He moved past me, unaware that every step he took inside that apartment was now part of something much bigger than him, something he couldn't control. As I watched him walk away, my smile faded, replaced by something colder, stronger, final, because he thought he was living two lives. But he didn't realize I had already stepped into both. And soon, I wouldn't just expose him. I would dismantle him, piece by piece, until the man who thought I'd cry would be the one begging on his knees. By the third day, I had stopped reacting and started executing. There's a dangerous kind of calm that comes after betrayal, a silence, so deep it almost feels like peace, but it isn't. It's calculation. Every emotion gets filtered, every impulse controlled, every move intentional. That's where I was now. No longer the woman trying to understand why this was happening, but the one deciding what would happen next. Daniel still had no idea. That was the most fascinating part. He moved through our apartment like everything was normal, like I was still a safe place, still the woman who would greet him with soft smiles and quiet patience. And I played my part perfectly. I didn't question him. I didn't argue. I didn't even look suspicious. I became easier, softer, quieter, exactly what he expected. And that was his first mistake, because while he was getting comfortable in his lie, I was building something far more dangerous behind it. That afternoon, I sat across from a man Daniel trusted more than anyone in his professional life, Mr. Adrian Blake, senior partner at the firm, the kind of man whose approval could make or break careers. The office smelled of leather and aged wood, sunlight filtering through tall glass windows that overlooked the city like it belonged to him. He studied me carefully, fingers steepled together, his expression unreadable. "I wasn't expecting you," he said calmly. "Most people don't expect the truth either." I replied, placing my phone gently on the desk between us. His eyes flickered down, then back up to mine. "You should explain," he said. And I did, not emotionally, not dramatically, just facts, precise, controlled, powerful. I showed him the photo I had taken, the timestamps, the patterns, the overlap between Daniel's so-called work commitments and his time with Lena. And then I showed him something even more valuable: connections, deals that lined up too perfectly, private meetings that weren't documented, information that should have been confidential, but somehow wasn't. Mr. Blake's expression didn't change much, but I saw it, the shift, the moment curiosity turned into concern. "You're making a serious accusation," he said slowly. "I'm presenting a serious truth," I corrected. Silence settled between us, thick and heavy. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked finally. A small smile touched my lips, but it wasn't warm. "Because you deserve to know who you're trusting your company with," I said. Then I leaned back slightly. "And because I'm giving you the chance to act before someone else does." His gaze sharpened. Smart man. He understood exactly what I was offering. Not revenge. Leverage. When I left that office, I didn't feel victorious. Not yet, but I felt something better. In control. That evening, the atmosphere home felt different. Daniel was unusually attentive. He asked about my day, sat closer than usual, even laughed more. Guilt. It made people predictable. "You seem in a good mood," I said casually, watching him over the rim of my glass. "Just a good day," he replied. "Things are finally falling into place." I almost smiled. If only he knew. "That's great," I said softly. And I meant it, because the higher he climbed, the harder he would fall. Later that night, while he slept beside me, peaceful, unaware, I stared at the ceiling, listening to the steady rhythm of his breathing. This man had once been my future. Now he was my lesson, and lessons weren't meant to be gentle. The next phase of my plan began quietly. Emails, anonymous tips, small inconsistencies placed in the right hands. Nothing obvious, nothing dramatic, just enough to create cracks. Because destruction isn't about one big moment. It's about pressure, applied slowly, precisely, until something breaks. By the end of the week, the shift had started. I saw it in the way Daniel checked his phone more often, the way his jaw tightened during calls, the way he became just slightly distracted. "Everything okay?" I asked one evening, my tone laced with just the right amount of concern. "Yeah," he said quickly, "just work stuff." Of course it was. I nodded, stepping closer, placing a gentle hand on his arm. "I'm here if you need anything," I said softly. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Doubt. Not about me. About himself. Good. Let it grow, because doubt was a beginning of collapse. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. That night, as I sat alone in the dim light of the living room, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Her. "I see you've started moving," she said. "I don't start things I can't finish," I replied calmly. A pause. Then, "You're playing a dangerous game." I let out a quiet breath, my gaze drifting toward the dark window where my reflection stared back at me, no longer soft, no longer naive. "Not a game," I said quietly. "A correction." She didn't respond immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice carried something new. Respect. "Then let's see how far you're willing to go." The line went dead. I placed the phone down slowly, my mind already 10 steps ahead. Because this wasn't just about catching him anymore. It wasn't even just about exposing him. This was about making him feel it. Every lie, every betrayal, every moment he thought I was weak. I wanted him to experience the same helplessness he had handed me so carelessly, but on my terms, at my pace, with no escape. As I stood there in the quiet, one thought settled firmly in my mind. Clear, unshakable, final. Daniel Carter still believed he was in control. He still thought he was choosing his future, but he didn't realize something crucial. The moment he underestimated me, he stopped being the player and became the target. And soon, very soon, the man who thought I'd cry would start losing everything he thought he had built. And when it all collapsed, he wouldn't just regret it. He would beg. By the time the cracks became visible to everyone else, Daniel was already falling apart from the inside. It started subtly, just like I planned. A missed call here, a delayed response there, a meeting that ended too abruptly. At first, no one questioned it. People like Daniel built their reputations on confidence, on control, on illusion that nothing could shake them. But the thing about illusions is, once they start breaking, they don't stop. They shatter. I saw it happen in real time. One evening, I walked into the apartment to find him standing by the window, his tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, phone pressed tightly against his ear. His voice was low, tense, nothing like the smooth, controlled tone he used to carry so effortlessly. "I told you I didn't leak anything," he snapped, pacing slightly. "There's no way this traces back to me." I paused quietly near the hallway, just out of his sight, listening. A long silence followed on the other end, then his jaw tightened. "No, that's not what I'm saying. Just give me time to fix it." Fix it. I almost smiled. That word had become his prison, because the more he tried to fix things, the more everything unraveled. He ended the call abruptly, dragging a hand over his face in frustration before finally noticing me. "Oh," he said, startled. "You're home." I tilted my head slightly, studying him. "You look stressed," I said softly. He let out a short breath, forcing a weak smile. "Just work. It's complicated right now." Of course it was, because the anonymous emails I had sent had reached exactly where they needed to. Questions were being asked. Audits were being whispered about. Trust, the very thing Daniel had built his career on, was beginning to erode. And the most beautiful part? He had no idea where it was coming from. I stepped closer, my expression calm, almost concerned. "Maybe you're taking on too much," I suggested gently. "You've been distracted lately." For a split second, something flickered across his face. Guilt, then defensiveness. "I'm fine," he said quickly. I nodded like I believe him, but inside, I knew he was already cracking. The next hit came 2 days later. Public, messy, unavoidable. The firm had scheduled an internal review meeting, mandatory for senior associates involved in recent deals. Daniel had mentioned it casually over breakfast, trying to sound unaffected, but I noticed the way his fingers lingered just a little too long on his coffee mug, the way his eyes avoided mine. He knew something was wrong. He just didn't know how wrong. By noon, my phone buzzed. Unknown number again. But this time there was no message, just a video. I opened it slowly, my pulse steady. It was from inside the conference room. Voices raised, tension thick. And there he was, Daniel, standing at the center, no longer the confident man who commanded attention, but someone cornered. "Explain this," Mr. Blake's voice cut through sharply, holding up a file. Daniel's expression was tight. "I already told you, there's been a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding doesn't create patterns," another voice interrupted. "It doesn't explain unauthorized disclosures." The room erupted into overlapping voices, questions firing at him from every direction. For the first time, he didn't have answers. I watched as his composure slipped, just slightly, but enough for them to see it, enough for everything to change. The video ended abruptly, and for a moment, I just sat there, staring at the blank screen. Not shocked, not emotional, just aware. This was it, the beginning of the end. That night, he didn't come home on time, not even close. When he finally walked through the door, hours later, he looked like a different man, drained, uneasy, uncertain. "How bad is it?" I asked quietly from the couch. He froze, clearly not expecting the question. "It's nothing," he said automatically, but his voice lacked conviction. I stood slowly, walking toward him, stopping just close enough to feel the tension radiating off him. "Daniel," I said softly, "you can't fix something if you don't admit it's broken." His eyes met mine, and for the first time in a long time, he looked lost. I don't know what's happening, he admitted, his voice lower now. Things are slipping. People are questioning everything. I held his gaze, letting silence stretch just enough to make him uncomfortable. Sometimes, I said carefully, things fall apart because of the choices we make. His expression shifted slightly, like something about my words unsettled him. But he didn't push further. Not yet, because he wasn't ready to face the truth. But he would be, soon. The final piece fell into place the following evening. I had arranged it perfectly. Timing, location, witnesses, everything. Daniel had no idea when he walked into that upscale restaurant that night, thinking it was just another meeting to salvage what little control he had left. But he wasn't meeting a client. He was walking into his exposure. I sat at a table near the back, hidden just enough to observe everything without being seen immediately. The soft lighting cast golden shadows across the room, the quiet hum of conversations creating the perfect cover for what was about to unfold. And then he walked in, right on time. His eyes scanned the room, confusion flickering across his face when he didn't see who he expected. But before he could turn, "She's not coming." The voice came from behind him. "Lena." He froze, slowly turning to face her. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice tight. She stepped closer, her expression no longer soft or charming, but sharp, controlled, almost impressed. "You should have been more careful," she said quietly. His confusion turned into irritation. "What are you talking about?" And that's when it happened. I stood up, stepping out of the shadows. His eyes found mine, and everything stopped. For a moment, he just stared. Shock. Real, undeniable shock. "You," he breathed. I walked toward him slowly, each step deliberate, the sound of my heels echoing faintly against the polished floor. "You really thought I wouldn't find out?" I asked softly. His gaze flickered between me and Lena, panic beginning to rise beneath the surface. "This isn't what it looks like." "Stop." I cut him off, my voice calm but final, because this time I wasn't here to listen. I was here to end it. "You lied," I said, meeting his eyes. "You used me, and worst of all," I paused, letting the weight of my words settle. "You underestimated me." Silence. Heavy. Crushing. People around us had started noticing now, whispers spreading, attention shifting. Exactly as planned. "You think this is some kind of joke?" he said, his voice rising slightly. I smiled, cold, unshaken. "No," I said quietly. "This is consequences." And for the first time, Daniel Carter looked afraid, not confused, not defensive, afraid, because in that moment, he finally understood. This wasn't something he could talk his way out of. This wasn't something he could fix. This was something he had lost control of completely. And as I stood there, watching everything he had built begin to collapse around him, one truth echoed louder than anything else. He thought I'd cry, but instead, I had become the reason he was about to fall to his knees. The silence that followed felt louder than anything that had come before it. It spread across the restaurant like a ripple. Slow at first, then impossible to ignore. Conversations died down, eyes turned, and whispers began weaving to the room like smoke. But I didn't look at anyone else. I only looked at him, Daniel, the man who once stood so confidently beside me, now standing frozen, his world slipping through his fingers in real time. This is insane," he muttered, running a hand through his hair, his voice unsteady for the first time. "You're blowing this out of proportion. Out of proportion." Even now, he was trying to shrink it, control it, rewrite it. I let out a soft breath, shaking my head slightly, almost in disbelief. Not at what he'd done, but at how predictable he still was. "No," I said quietly. "I'm finally seeing it clearly." Lena stepped back then, folding her arms, watching him with a detached expression, as if he was no longer someone she needed to stand beside, but a situation she was observing. That was the thing about people like her. They didn't stay when things got messy. They survived. And right now, Daniel wasn't worth surviving for. "You set this up?" he asked, his eyes locking onto mine, anger beginning to replace the fear. "Yes," I answered without hesitation. At least one of us was honest now. His jaw tightened. "You had no right." "No right?" I stepped closer, my voice still calm but sharper now, each word precise. You lost the right to talk about fairness the moment you decided I was disposable. That hit. I saw it, the flicker of realization. But it wasn't enough to save him. Not anymore. This could destroy me, he said, lowering his voice, glancing around at the people who were very clearly paying attention now. I tilted my head slightly. It already has, I replied, because the truth was, this moment wasn't a destruction. It was just the exposure. The real damage had already been done. Quietly, carefully, over days of pressure he never saw coming. The firm had launched a formal investigation. His deals were under review, his reputation questioned, and Lena, she had already started distancing herself. I had made sure of that too, because when everything collapsed, he would stand alone. You don't understand, he said, stepping closer now, his voice dropping into something more desperate. We can fix this. Whatever you think you've done, just stop. We'll figure it out. We. That word almost made me laugh. There is no we anymore, Daniel, I said softly, and for the first time, that truth landed, really landed. His shoulders dropped slightly, like the weight of it finally reached him. I made a mistake, he said, his voice quieter now. Okay? I admit it. I messed up, but this, he gestured around helplessly. This is too much. Too much. I studied his face carefully. The same face I once trusted, once loved, once believed in, and for a brief moment, I searched for something. Regret, not fear of consequences, not desperation, but real regret. And I didn't find it, only self-preservation. I gave you everything, I said, my voice no longer sharp but steady, grounded in something deeper. My time, my trust, my loyalty, and you didn't just break that, you used it. He shook his head quickly. That's not true. It is. I cut in gently, and the worst part? I paused, letting the words settle between us. You really thought I wouldn't do anything about it. Silence. Heavy. Final. Because that was the truth he couldn't argue with. He had underestimated me. Completely. What do you want? He asked finally, the fight in his voice fading into something else. Something weaker. And there it was. The shift. The moment everything turned. I didn't answer immediately. I let him sit in it. Feel it. The uncertainty. The lack of control. The exact same feeling he had given me. What do I want? I repeated softly. Then I took one final step closer, my voice dropping just enough that only he could hear me. I want you to feel it. His brows pulled together. Feel what? I held his gaze, steady, unshaken. The moment you realize you lost something real, I said quietly, and you traded it for something temporary. His breath hitched slightly. Good, because now he was starting to understand. Around us, the tension had reached its peak. People weren't pretending not to watch anymore. This wasn't just a private confrontation. It was a collapse, and everyone could see it. I'm sorry, he said suddenly. The words came out fast. Too fast. Like he had just realized he was running out of time. I'm sorry, he repeated, his voice breaking slightly now. I shouldn't have done it. I should have told you. He exhaled sharply. I thought I could handle it. Handle it? Like I was something to manage. Something to balance alongside his ambition. I shook my head slowly. No, I said, you thought you wouldn't get caught. That was the truth, and we both knew it. His eyes dropped for a second, just a second, but it was enough, because that silence, that was his confession. I can fix this, he said again, but now it sounded weaker. I'll end it with her. I'll make things right. Just don't do this. Don't do this. The irony almost hurt, because he had already done it. All of it. I already did, I said simply. His head snapped up. What? The investigation, I continued calmly. The questions, the doubts. I held his gaze. That didn't just happen, Daniel. The color drained from his face. Understanding hit him all at once. You, he whispered. I didn't deny it. I didn't need to. Why? He asked, his voice hollow now. And for the first time that night, I answered honestly. Because you needed to learn, I said quietly, that actions have consequences. Silence wrapped around us again, but this time it felt different. He wasn't fighting anymore. He wasn't arguing. He was breaking. "I'll lose everything," he said, barely audible. I nodded slightly. "I know." His eyes met mine again, and this time there was no arrogance left, no control, just desperation. "Please," he said. And there it was, the moment, the one he never thought would come. The man who thought I'd cry was standing in front of me, begging. But the thing about revenge, real revenge, isn't loud. It isn't chaotic. It doesn't need anger to survive. It's quiet, final, and deeply, painfully deserved. I stepped back, creating distance between us, not just physically, but emotionally, permanently. "I hope it was worth it," I said softly. Then I turned, and I walked away, not waiting for his response, not looking back, because some endings don't need closure. They just need truth. And as I stepped out into the night, the cool air hitting my face, I finally felt it. Not relief, not happiness, but something stronger. Freedom. Behind me, everything he had built was collapsing. His career, his reputation, his illusion of control. And me, I wasn't broken. I wasn't the girl standing in the rain anymore, waiting for someone who had already chosen to leave. I was the woman who walked away first. Stronger, smarter, untouchable, because he thought I'd cry. But instead, I made him beg. And then I left him there, exactly where he belonged, alone,